The XPS 13 versus MacBook Air series is made possible by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create your very own website, blog, or online store. It features an intuitive interface, great looking templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try it out at squarespace.com/mstech and use the offer code mstech at checkout to get 10% off. If you're in the market for a $1,000 laptop, two of your top contenders should be the Dell XPS 13 and the Apple MacBook Air. And the purpose of this series is to put those two laptops head to head and see which one provides an overall better laptop experience for your $1,000. So this is part one, which will be going over the hardware of each laptop. Part two will be coming soon, and that will be real world and synthetic benchmarks. So hardware, without a doubt, is one of the most important aspects of a laptop. The materials and build quality determine the user interaction with the laptop, and the specs obviously influence the speed and overall fluidity of the laptop. And because of those two things, hardware is often the first thing that somebody will notice about a laptop. The MacBook Air has the whole aluminum unibody thing going on, and that's a staple for all the MacBooks with good reason, because it screams quality. Not only does it look fantastic, it feels fantastic, and it doesn't collect dust or fingerprints easily. The XPS 13 does have an outer aluminum shell that also looks great and does not collect dust or fingerprints, but on the inside it actually has a carbon fiber composite with a soft touch outer layer, and that is extremely comfortable to type on, and it's carbon fiber, which is awesome. And even though it looks like it would pick up dust and fingerprints and grease, it doesn't, so you get 2 thumbs up. I'm not going to get into dimensions, but the MacBook Air is notoriously small and portable. It's really thin all around, getting crazy thin at the front edge, and with a weight of just 3 pounds, it is definitely a portable machine. On the other hand, the XPS 13 makes even the MacBook Air look big. Even though they have the same screen size, the XPS 13 is significantly smaller than the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's actually closer in size to the 11-inch MacBook Air, which is really impressive. And it might not be as thin as the MacBook Air, but it's also only 2.6 pounds, and the XPS 13 basically redefines portable laptops. Typically, the bottom of laptops are not very interesting, and that is indeed the case with the MacBook Air. On the bottom, all you really have are 4 rubber feet that are actually pretty low quality. The ones on my mom's MacBook Pro are already coming off and peeling off, so I was a little bit disappointed with that, and other than the 4 rubber feet, there's really not anything at all on the bottom of the MacBook Air. The bottom on the XPS 13 is actually interesting. The first thing you'll notice are 2 long rubber feet that elevate the laptop off the desk that provides airflow for the equally as long air vent, which helps a lot with heat dissipation. On the bottom in the center, there's also a little stylish flap that conceals another screw and some information about the laptop. And I think the bottom of the XPS 13 looks totally badass and it makes it look cool, but it also is completely functional and everything down there makes sense. Also on the outside of a laptop is the I/O. The MacBook Air has a magnetic power dock, USB 3 port, headphone jack, Thunderbolt port, another USB 3 port, and an SD card reader. On the other hand, the XPS 13 has a power port, mini display port, USB 3 port, headphone jack, LED power indicator, another USB 3 port, and an SD card reader as well. The only thing I want to mention there is the MagSafe 2 magnetic power connector for the MacBook Air. I just love how it's really convenient that if you accidentally yank the cable out, the cable will come out and it won't take the laptop with it. Okay, so before we look at the opened laptops, I want to talk about opening the laptop, because opening the MacBook Air is infinitely times better than opening the XPS 13. I don't even have to explain, just look on screen now and see what I mean. The fact that I have to use 2 hands to open up the XPS 13 is just unacceptable. It might wear down over time and become just one-handed to open it, but for now, using 2 hands, it's just not okay. Now, both laptops have a 13-inch diagonal screen size. The MacBook Air is sporting a 16x10, 1440x900 resolution, while the Dell XPS 13 is sporting the more standard 16x9, 1920x1080p resolution. And honestly, I think that 1080p should be the minimum for laptops in today's market for new laptops, because compared side to side, the 1440x900 resolution on the MacBook Air just looks blurry and not as crisp or sharp as the 1080p screen on the XPS 13 does. But don't get me wrong, both screens are good screens. They have great viewing angles, great color reproduction, vibrant colors. They're good screens. I just wish the MacBook Air was higher res. Alright, so I know all of you have noticed this already, but the reason the XPS 13 can be so small is because of its bezels. The bezels are teeny. Just look at them. On the MacBook Air, you have huge 2-centimeter bezels, but on the XPS 13, the bezels are just 0.5 centimeters, and it really helps just keep the portability of the laptop. Dell is calling it the Infinity display, and it does sound cool, but I don't care what you call it. I hope more laptop manufacturers move towards including very small bezels to increase portability. The keyboards are pretty similar. They both use a backlit chiclet style keyboard. However, the MacBook Air does have a lot more brightness levels than the XPS 13, which only has high, medium, and off. But really it comes down to personal preference. I prefer the XPS 13 just because of the carbon fiber, soft touch material around where your palms are. I think it's just a little bit more comfortable to type on, but it comes down to personal preference. The trackpad is definitely one of the most important features of a laptop, especially if you're not using it with a mouse. And the trackpad on the MacBook Air is just flat out better than the trackpad on the XPS 13. On the MacBook Air, it's smoother to use, it registers it better. On the computer, if you're doing a two-finger scroll or back swipe, it always does it instantly and just feels fluid. While on the XPS 13, it's just a little less smooth. And if you're doing a two-finger gesture, it won't pick up that you're scrolling for like half a second, so there's a little bit of a delay and it just doesn't feel natural. And obviously you could get used to that, but the trackpad on the MacBook Air is definitely better. The speakers are a tough comparison, so real quick, here is a side-by-side test. Moto X. Real quick before I start, these are all opinions. These are me looking for flaws in the phone, things that I would rather have be a little bit different. By all means, you might have different opinions, you may disagree with me, you may think more is wrong with the phone. I personally like the sound coming from the XPS 13 a little bit better. The speakers are on the sides of the laptop as opposed to being through the keyboard like on the MacBook Air. And in my opinion, the XPS 13 just sounds fuller and better. And the MacBook Air sounds just less crisp and a little muddy at full volume. There will be a more specific spec comparison in part 2, but for now, at $1,000, the MacBook Air comes with a dual-core i5 previous generation, up to 2.7 GHz, 4 GB of RAM, 128 GB of SSD storage, and Intel HD 5000 graphics. For $1,000, the XPS 13 comes with the new 5th generation dual-core i5, up to 2.7 GHz, 8 GB of RAM, 128 GB of SSD storage, and Intel HD 5500 graphics. So kind of all around, the XPS 13 boasts slightly better specs. Concluding this is actually pretty easy. They both have great build quality. The XPS 13 is much smaller and more portable than the Air, but it is also a little bit thicker. The XPS 13 has a ventilated bottom, and each laptop has similar I/O. It's easy to open the MacBook Air, but the XPS 13's 1080p screen is far superior. The bezels on the XPS 13 are also tiny and miles better than the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air has a smoother trackpad, the XPS has slightly fuller speakers, and the XPS has better specs all around. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed and look forward to the next part, which will be real world and synthetic benchmarks coming later this week. Leave a like if you did enjoy, subscribe if you want to see more content. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay classy. Before I leave, I do want to talk about Squarespace again. Now, before Squarespace, my only website building experience was an old free website that I made in elementary school, and it looked awful. And when I tried out Squarespace for the first time, it blew my mind how much easier it is. The tools and templates they provide let absolutely anybody create a beautiful and incredibly functional website. It's only $8 a month to get your own website, and that comes with a responsive design that scales to look great on any device, a free included online store, and 24/7 customer support through live chat. You can also start building your own site now with a 14-day trial with no credit card required, but when you do make a purchase, use the offer code MSTech at checkout to get 10% off. And I just want to thank Squarespace for supporting the channel and making this awesome series possible, so thank you. Squarespace, build it beautiful.